Minister, diversity is so important to measure an effective education system. How curious does the system encourage our children and ourselves to be? And curiosity not just about the world and other people and things, but about ourselves. From that curiosity, all of these other things will sprout. Questioning the status quo, innovation, new solutions, discovering different passions, and that curiosity will make a big difference.
Except one point. Curiosity is a function of interest and passion. If you ask me, I'm very curious about public policy, how education policy is done in all over the world. I'm very curious about that. I'm really not that curious about what goes into laksa, because I'm really not a good cook. You cultivate curiosity only if you cultivate passion and interest in an area. It is very important to expose the child to different interests, help them find themselves, where are their strengths. Then they will become curious. When you are curious, you will learn.
Absolutely. I think that the appetite to roam is the core of that. If you roam in your mind and in your interests, and then when you find something that you're interested in, to seek that mastery, it's a proxy for saying that I have put time and effort and heart into getting to know something really well.
We take that point, Minister. Curiosity is there in every kid when they are young, and Singapore's education system is one of the best in the world. But the world has moved to a new curve in internet revolution, and we need to move there. And what is happening is, what is stopping us? You know, government is putting a lot of money in IT, many creative policies, but what is really blocking this whole thing is assessment. The way that we assess children at primary 6 and beyond is causing the root of the problem, because we have mastery of exam skills at primary 3, primary 4, primary 5 levels. When I used to run a tutoring chain, Ministry of Education said, no exams for primary 1 and 2. I cheered, but there'll be exams for primary 3 onwards, because primary 6 is the PSLE. So many of my tutoring franchisees told me, oh, we're going to
running a tutoring chain
in the past.
You're adding to the stress.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it, Minister. But the point is, I wish to see a day when the tutoring industry is non-existent. What happened is that many parents send more of their children to primary 1 and 2 tuition than the others, because they're worried that when they reach primary 3, they're going to be stressed.
Minister, because the immediate concern of us is to achieve great academic grades, how do you think lifelong learning can be instilled in schools?
We speak as if they are trade-offs. Either you have passion or you have grades. But I don't think so, because there are more overlaps than they are trade-offs. If you find an area you're interested in, you will be curious and you will pursue it. You will pursue it in school, you'll pursue it after school, and when you start working. It will be lifelong. And in that process, you'll find yourself scoring good grades because you're interested. And then you will get academic or skills qualification. And so learning is a skill. And how to make lifelong learning succeed is to be able to say, I'm prepared to dive deep. Even with the things I don't like to do, I'm going to do it anyway. It's only with that determination that lifelong learning can succeed.
In our polytechnic, the educators spent the last 2 years discussing this question. And if you ask us 3 years ago, yes, grades are very important. That's what educators are about. But I think gradually we come around to a point where grades are good for the student because it's a useful, not perfect proxy on how much you learn. But how much can the student learn comes down to motivation to learn, desire to learn, and sometimes must know how to learn. The grade is not everything. It is important, but it's not everything. More important, the attitude of lifelong learning, because long-term, that's what's better for the student. And what we call intrinsic motivation.
Exactly, but then it's the whole ecosystem in Singapore is telling you what to do, directly or indirectly.
We struggle with some students where we have prepared a wonderful experience for them, and we know they can do it, and the first thing they ask is, how will this affect my grade? First, hopefully it adds to my grade, and maybe it's grade neutral. Even if it's grade neutral and it takes away my time, I'm not going to do it. So we feel a bit sad. Fortunately, this is a small minority. Most of the students actually at that young age are very interested.
This is a very interesting exchange because it has you and Krystal saying the system is telling you what to do. And you have Shian, principal of Singapore Poly, who say that they're trying so much to have an interesting curriculum, learning journey for the students, but they say, no, I want to get good grades. I don't want that. There is just so much diversity and so much different learning styles and expectations and demands on the system. So what can we do? I think we got to start somewhere. One thing that has the momentum is to offer many more choices throughout the higher education system. You look at the number of polytechnics and the range of courses that's available. Republic Poly is doing a diploma in sonic art, theater management. You can have that kind of courses now. In the universities, we now have SUTD focusing on design. We have SIT, Singapore Institute of Technology. They are launching, together with UNISIM, 6 more courses this year. That includes allied health programs, occupational therapy, physiotherapy. UNISIM is coming out with a degree on social work. So they're all quite specific. I'm sure some students will be passionate in those areas. So make those choices available. Try as best as we can channel the passion into the right causes so that they don't feel that getting grades, studying, lifelong learning is a chore. It's something they want to do because they are curious.
I totally agree with the minister's approach. As we open up this SkillsFuture, you're actually opening up many doors, many pathways for the best and the brightest and the weakest in our society so that it becomes like what DPM Tharman says, an inclusive society who gives everybody a choice and a choice career. When government does its part, then society must also change. Parents, families, employers, the whole ecosystem. And government, being that catalyst, must also say, now we should not be so caught up with just getting a degree. Bill Gates left Harvard and many others. So there is different path and you can still succeed. And say, you can be an artist, you can be Fandi Ahmad.
So going back to that, how do we change this mentality of having students not think so much about credits?
So what we did in Singapore Poly, 3 years ago, we picked our best students, which we celebrate during graduation, largely based on grades, because that's how it was done and that's what the rule book says. And we realized there are some students, maybe like you, who are pursuing side passion, either officially supported, meaning it's a CCA, or really something totally outside. Just makes them a holistic, a fun, interesting person. And often that means you don't get your 4.0 GPA, you may get 3.8. We discussed internally and it took us a few years to adjust, but now we look at students with good grades, the best grades, not the best student with the best grades, the group of students with the best grades, and then we look at them holistically. And someone like you may end up being a best student without getting the best GPA. It's a long journey. It took a long time. I had to deal with some parents.
I would like to take a different tack on this question of the grades versus passion. I do think that while the system can encourage and facilitate and create flexibility and so on, the question that you asked, Farisha, about how we move students' mindsets from this grades fixation, I think it's partly also in the students' minds. There's only that much we can do. I think that individuals have to own the mindset of lifelong learning because they believe that it enriches their lives and that mastery is a good thing. And if you are driven by that, if a person is driven by that, then okay, you want to make sure that your grades are good enough, but it wouldn't be your primary driver. I think that the grades fixation is partly because people don't have a competing set of beliefs about what is important. So then you just follow and say, okay, grades are important, so I'm just going to go for grades.
I have a different view. I played hockey, ran for university. I did a lot of fun things, students' union, which were not part of my credits. I didn't mind. That doesn't count to a qualification, but those count a lot more in my entire life. Today, if I can talk confidently, it was not what in Sec 4 English or English literature taught me. It was the lessons in the hockey field, the soccer field, the rugby, the cheering with fellow friends for a fellow team. So if you ask me that what gets you better in life is all-round skills. Academic qualification is a necessary evil, but enjoy the journey with all the other things because those who do well in life later on are those with the broader skills.
I think that's very idealistic. In application, of course, I agree because, like I said before just now, someone like me is able to become an entrepreneur because right from the start I reject the system. But that's not to say that we should ignore input from parents, from teachers, from society at large, the media, etc. And how our parents, for example, kids still look up to their parents even if they have Google. They still look to their parents for their opinions and for validation. So how are these parents going to be convinced that a university degree is not the top thing the students need to pursue, and that qualification is what's going to make them employable, make them productive, and lead good lives because parents want the best for their kids. They want them to be independent and be able to self-sustain.
What about the older generation, those who are in a position to make important decisions about Farisha?
Older generation, they love their children. Whatever they do, whatever we complain about older generation, they do it out of their love and care for the next generation. It's my belief that if they see a whole new younger generation looking at society differently, looking at occupations differently, they too will change their minds. Don't underestimate the speed at which society can change their view. It will be a very good thing if society start to change its view about different occupations. Not everyone must be accountant, doctor, engineer, you know? You can be a range of things. And yet, so long as you have mastery, you are excellent at it, you'll be respected.
I completely agree with that. And there are societies where the respect for certain kind of trades, which are not considered in the professional class, is very high. I think the important thing is that, and I hope that we will continue down this track as a society where what we respect is people who are very good at what they do and who have the pride of mastery and who invest in that. And that's hopefully something that SkillsFuture is putting front and center in people's minds. I love the word mastery. I think that's what's going to make the difference.
If Farisha had chosen to be a singer as her primary, right, then I think society's attitudes or our attitudes towards her as a person, contributor to the economy, may be a little different, maybe a little less than if she had been a political scientist.
Absolutely not.
You're a bit an outlier.
I don't think the younger generation look at it that way at all.
How close or far do you think the Singapore society is to having that kind of respect for the different pathways that people take or even different definitions of success?
I think we've come a long way. I really do.
I think so too.
Mr. Tan?
I'm from the generation where many of us are parents. I also meet parents in my work. And I do think they care for their kids, which is why many of them show up during open house. They come along for guidance. I mean, our generation, if you're 17-year-old, you would not want your parent to be seen with you on campus. It's quite different now. Having said that, I do believe parents today and parents of the future will listen to their kids. And I know my kids are very open to all the possibilities. The kids are a lot more open-minded than we give them credit for. And I think the parents will come along.
Okay, that's comforting.
I actually have an anecdote just for that. My dad is quite traditional. This time last year, he asked me why am I jobless and I should be a general manager at a corporation by now if I had just taken a job. And then I got funded and we have our own office. When he stepped into my office for the first time to help me set up, he realized I did have a job. And then now in his head, I'm doing technology, whereas I was doing it for
And
years
you're the
already.
boss.
Yeah.
We must remember, whatever we complain about parents' expectations and demand, they did it out of love for their children. And so when they see their children doing well, they will change their mind.
Immediately, it was an immediate switch.